Hey everybody, I'm Steve Levy from the Real School of Music and welcome to Real Guitar Tips. Today we're going to be talking about fretboard mechanics. So I want to talk about how these things that we've been discussing in the previous video translate into real life playing. And one of the things I want to do is just make a simple C chord down here, and you notice that like I'm in that neutral position that we talked about. My fingers are arched, I'm playing from the tips. If I just move my hand very, very slightly out of that position, you hear that some of these notes are muted now. You can't really hear the chord very clearly. And when you're first learning, I would recommend you do this anytime you learn a chord. Play each note on the chord and see if there's anything wrong and figure out what you can do to correct it. If you're fingering your chords correctly, you're close to the fret wire, everything should sound nice and clear like that. So another thing that will sometimes happen if your hand's out of alignment, it's very, very easy to pull a chord out of tune. I'm just going to make a really simple D chord here. And again, like if I just like kind of raise my fingers slightly, you can see that string is barely moving, but the chord is really pulling out of tune. And just like a little bit of upward pressure when you don't want it is going to make that happen. So if you just have your hand all lined up properly, have that energy going directly into the fretboard, get a nice clean chord, nice and in tune. So I want to talk a little bit how to think of learning and building your chords. It's natural when you're first learning to have like a one finger at a time approach. Eventually what you want to do is like think of these chords as being whole shapes that you move in and out of effortlessly as one continuous movement. But when you're first learning, what most people will tend to do is they'll tend to like finger the highest pitched note first and work their way backwards. I actually find it's better to start with the lowest pitched note that you're going to finger in the chord and work your way up like that. So again, if we were working with a C chord, I would recommend going with the root on the 5th string, and I think that your hands will tend to fall into position much more easily that way. And I'd like to talk about economy of movement with your chords too, and this has a lot to do with the fact that you're understanding that like there are entire shapes that you're trying to move in and out of at one time rather than the one finger at a time approach. I'm just going to play like a simple chord progression going from G to C to F. One thing you'll notice is that like my fingers are staying close to the fretboard, and I have like these fingers that are just kind of marching down that way rather than splaying my whole hand out and reforming the chord. I'm trying to figure out what notes I can kind of like move to adjacently and what notes I can kind of keep in common. So when I'm going to my G, I'm going down to my C, I'm just adding that first finger on the B string. And then when I'm going to my F chord, I can just leave that index finger where it is rather than taking it off and putting it back down. It's just more economical and your chord transitions will be much smoother. Thanks for watching everyone. I'm Steve Levy from the Real School of Music and we'll see you in the next video.